Hi everyone, welcome to UX Living Lab. Our presentation will start soon. Hi everyone, welcome to UX Living Lab. Today we are talking about how did interacting with your brand make the customer feel. In simple sentence, how to measure feelings of customers. This is the third component in development of CX index. The last 2 weeks we talk about effectiveness, easiness, and now we are talking about feelings, emotions, and feelings. All of us have feelings and emotions. There is a little bit difference between emotions and feelings, but people are using it in both words. They are using to express their emotions and feelings or their what they have in their mind, but actually there is a little bit difference. But we know what is emotions, we know what is feelings, but how to measure it, that we are talking today. What is emotion? Emotions are neurological reactions to an emotional stimulus. What it means, when we show some product, a product or service, or any trigger in front of a customer, it creates some emotions in their neurological system. That is called emotions. Some changes in the neurological system, that is called emotions. So it should have a trigger. Maybe the triggers are from outside or inside. So in a business context or in a consumer context, we can say that a product is a trigger or service is a trigger. When a consumer sees or experience with the service, it creates a neurological change in their mind. That is called emotion. And feelings. Feelings are the conscious experience of emotional reactions. So how consumer is reacting after the consumer is having emotion, the emotion will be transformed to reactions. So feelings are the conscious experience of the emotional reactions. So this is the difference between emotions and feelings. But keep in mind, emotions and feelings are closely related but distinct instances. Basically, there are two sides of the coin. Most strictly speaking, a feeling is a side product of our brain perceiving an emotion and assigning a certain meaning to it. So, new emotions creates in your neurological system, then it gives some meaning according to our experience, our knowledge, or a lot of things works on it based on the intellect. It gives mind gives a meaning to that. That is called feelings. Okay, how to measure customers' feelings? That's our question in front of us. This customer experience is closely related to feelings. How to measure it? This is not a new topic. Everyone knows some way or other we can measure the feelings. But what model we are discussing about, that is little bit different from other models. Most of the people are measuring it logically, just a logical, but we present here is a empirical model, not a logical model, because different models are available. Some people give some components and say this is feeling. Some people say that okay, I have a fear, I have love with that product. Okay, logically they are selecting different variables and measuring it. Still we need a scientific method, and we have to follow scientific models or empirical models. So how to measure customers feeling, that we are talking now. think about more clarity. You can look into these. And what do you mean? Think about this. What do you mean when we talk about someone's emotions or their emotional responses? This gives more clarity and how you differentiate between emotions and feelings. So emotions, okay, no. So you have a lot of emotions in your mind. So it may not be expressed, but feelings will be expressed. Yeah, that is the main line of control between the emotions and feelings. This is the way we have to differentiate between these two. So actually, some circumstances or context creates triggers emotions, and from emotions it transforms to feelings. Okay, how to measure customers' feelings against a service provided? Think about being in a business context, we are providing service. It includes products. So when consumer interact with our service or product, it creates a lot of emotions in their mind. Then creates transform to feelings. So how to measure it? Feelings can be measured from following variables. What model we are proposing? So one is peace and tranquility, heroic mood, love, attractiveness, laughter, mirth or comedy, wonder, amazement, fury, compassion, tragedy, disgust, aversion, and horror, terror. These are the 9 variables we have to talk about. I will go deep into each variable and how these are connected. But these are the 9 variables we can talk about while we talk about feelings. Okay, what are the scales? The first scale is peace or tranquility. What it is? Whether our product or brand or service gives a peace of mind. That's really very interesting question. If you sell a car, it stops in between while traveling. You always have a uh, tension or always have in a mood. Oh, at when it will stop. So that is not creating a peace of mind. So the product creates a unpleasant situation or turbulence in your mind. That's not a peace of mind. So whether the product triggers a peace of mind or turbulence in your mind, that is a one first or very important thing in our mind. Then the second one is heroic mode. So when a consumer use our product, they feel some, okay, I have a good status in a society, or create some ego in his mind. He has something higher. That is heroic mode. Then third is love and attractiveness. Whether a consumer loves your product or brand, service. So whether it attracts. For example, think about a banking. Whether they love the banking app or they are using it because of some statutory reasons, that's okay. But whether they love your product or they are not interested to use your product, but still I am forced to use it because that's the only option in front of me, that's a different thing. So that's a scale. Then next one is laughter or mirth or comedy. These to be understood in different ways, different perspectives. Because if you are giving a product which creates entertainment, you can take this as a positive side, create a fun or something like that. Entertainment products, it's you can take it as a positive side. Think about a banking product, is give laugher means it's a negative. That's a comedy, so they are laughing at your product, that's actually having a different meaning. So the scales have to be set according to your product, your service or your brand. So it can be in a positive side or negative side of acceptance. So that's the next scale. Then the next one is wonder, amazement. Oh, again, this is having different meaning. It's wonder whether it creates that type of feeling in consumer's mind. while the consumers see your service or experience with your service. Maybe it's a great expectation, so wandering with a great expectation, that's also fine. Then fury. Okay, so let's really think about fury. So it's nobody, well, fear, everything we can connect to that. Not fear, actually, they are against that. And not fear is not against that, they are in a lowest level, but fury means they are fighting against it. So that's another emotion the customer is having. Then compassion or tragedy. Oh, your product is a complete tragedy in front of me, so it won't work or it gives any value to my daily life. It's a complete tragedy. That's also another state of mind. Then disgust or our so just rejecting the product or service because so many reasons. It creates a very unpleasant situation. Then horror, terror. Think about it. Creates it's a fear or terror in the consumer's mind. That's also uh, another measuring level. So these are the 9 measurement level: that the peace, heroic, love, comedy, wonder, fury, tragedy, disgust, horror. This is an empirical model we have, and we had to measure this, each component to be measured. How to measure it? So we had to use a scale to measure. So measure the scale means it should have a different points where consumer can give some values or some comparative say statement or comparison between the peace of mind and unpleasant situation or turbulence. These they have to differentiate. That's why we have to use scale. So how to measure it? So methods of measuring emotions. We are talking about emotions first because whatever the product or service you show in front of the consumer triggers emotions. So how to measure it? There are a lot of scientific methods or equipment based methods, that is pupil dilation, that is simply it's called eye tracking. You can look into the consumer's eyes, then whether it is contrasting or expanding or these that's a scientific method. We can use eye tracking. Another is skin conductance. You can measure it from skin. Then brain activity, that EEG, MRI, these are the different ways to measure uh, what are the different current levels creating in brain activity. Then heart rate, because when there is some emotion comes in, so your heart rate will change. That ECG is another measurement. Facial expression, that face reading or facial expressions. These are the main scientific methods or laboratory methods of measuring it. Of course, you feel that it's very complex. Okay, if you have the equipment or if you have access to these equipments, you can use it and measure the feelings, and you show the product in front of the consumer and get these values. But it's a controlled environment. I'm not saying that it's a real life experiment. It's a controlled environment. There's one method we can measure emotions, but if you are not interested to do it in a controlled environment, that means you have to do it in a real life environment. Otherwise you are not in a position to spend on these type of equipments. Then observation. Observe. There are a lot of errors based on the person who is observing. They're always biased, so observation will be having errors. You have to nullify these errors using statistical methods. That's okay. But the observation is the right method if you want to look into, or if you want to get this measurement from the real life or daily life. So measuring emotions have 2 methods. One is laboratory methods in a controlled environment. Oh, Because the why I am saying the control environment is the person who is going to react have the state of mind or have the feeling that he is going to, someone is measuring it, someone is watching him, or some way it's measuring, so there is some changes in his mind. That's why it's not natural. So natural method is always come from the observation. But observation will be having biased reading by the observer. Okay, that the next is how to measure feelings. Then emotions comes to feelings. How to measure it? The feelings, the questionnaire method, one is simplest form. Because feelings we can measure only by expression from the consumer. So they have to express. They have to say something. They have to show something. They have to compare something. So one easiest method, you can ask direct questions. It will answer to that question what the feeling they have. So that's a questionnaire method. You have to develop the questionnaire. Maybe you can ask questions. The interviewer can ask questions, or the self-completion questionnaires. Both ways it will work. So questionnaire is the one simplest and traditional method to measure feelings. Another is story analysis. Let them share the stories. Let them express their feelings in any way what they have. It becomes a story. And story analysis is one of the very interesting method. So you can measure the story and make it into a different state of mind, as we express in from conclude to the 9 scales. That's a measuring of feelings. Then how to measure it? So think about when you select a sample size or the group of people to analyze your product or with any consumer. So you have to measure these 9 factors individually. Take consumer A and measure the peace, heroic love, all these 9 factors you have to measure. That means first you have to observe the consumer and find the emotions, then ask. That's the second stage. We have to measure the feelings. That's an individual measurement. Then you have to convert it to group mean, because there's a group of consumer. You can use all the segmentation methods. If you're more interested in segmentation, you can go to my previous presentation, which explains a lot of things about segmentation. So age-wise segmentation, income-wise segmentation, or geographic segmentation, psychographic segmentation, behavior segmentation. All these segmentation you can use, then convert it to group mean. Then you have to fix your acceptance level. Maybe you are using a scale like 0 to 10, or uh, there is a center point and the deviation, there's a distance from the acceptable level. Anyway, from that measurement, you have to fix an acceptance level, then compare with the value or the deviation of the value what you got. That's the way. So individual measurement, then group mean, then acceptance level. Okay, from these explanations, I will present you a model for measuring emotions and feelings. Think about you are giving a service to a consumer, any service it may be. So consumer is experiencing the service. What next? Based on that service context, you have to measure emotions. So these are different methods you can use it. So if you don't, I already explained, if you don't have these technologies, you can use observation method. Anyway, you have to measure emotions. That's the first step. Then second step goes to feelings measurement, as I explained. How we have to do that? Measure values using equipments or observation. Then develop a regression model for each feeling, because the P is heroic, love, comedy, wonder, fury, tragedy, disgust, or horror, whatever it may be. For all these 9 feelings, you have to develop a regression model from these values. While observing, you will get a lot of values. Maybe the eye tracking, you will get a lot of values. What is happening when you show this service, or when the person see this screen, what's the feeling, how the eye tracking values are. When the person give the payment or use the payment side of your banking app, what is the brain activity the person is having, or heart rate. Okay, they everything you can measure. Think about it. Just seeing advertisement also they can measure. This method is not new, because in the advertising acceptance, the technology people are using this method. So when you see advertisement of any product, what feelings, what is the change in the heart rate, what is change in the ECG, or eye movement, so we can track that. So what is the stimulus in front of you, that is very important, and get the values. So we measured it using equipment or observation, these two methods. Then measure these values, then from that values, value won't give anything to you, so you have to convert into a regression model. Then from these values it concludes to peace, it concludes to love level, or it concludes to comedy, it concludes to horror or tragedy, like that. We have to conclude from these values. If this is the proposition of these values, when you show this stimulus, this is the proposition of the values, and it convert to this. That's regression model. Statistics people can understand this very clearly, what is regression model. Or we can say that's just a formula between these values. It gives different weightage and relations. Okay, that's the next step. Then you have to continuously measure it in different contexts, different geographies, and different uh, behaviors, and different segment of people. Then develop time series for your brand. This is the way you have to continuously measure your feelings of your consumer. This is more scientific, or more the empirical models are used, and these model is well established in years and years in drama. Uh, so I'm not a person who is comment on these acting or expressions, but actually this model I took from the psychological expressions derived from theaters. Okay, but the actor is expressing this in a conscious way, but this is the 9 possibilities of human feelings. So as a consumer, it happens within no time. One important thing is it should measure within 5 seconds. That is very important, because after 5 seconds they will express from their thinking process. That's a different thing. Emotions should measure immediately. When the person see the stimulus, immediately it reacts, it get a reaction in his mind. So it has to be measured immediately. So equipments will measure it immediately, that's okay, but while you do the observation, you have to do it within 5 seconds. It's very important. But after that, the emotions will change, and they will explain the emotions in a different way, that becomes feelings. So emotions you have to measure within 5 seconds. Then you can talk about feelings, what happened, or why you are crying, or what happened to this situation. Okay, why you are saying that creates a horror in his mind, something like that. So that's feelings. Then I can just give a more simple demonstration about this model. It gives more clarity to you. Look, okay, very simple demonstration. You are giving a service. Think about the consumer is experiencing an application. If the consumer is having loaded with all these equipments, you can measure the emotions. Otherwise, you can use observation of this. Think about consumer can feel this. Then that feelings can be explained and come to their mind, and it's section. This is the model. Then what we measure, the service, what's the stimulus in front of the person, that is very important. So against each stimulus we have to measure, or each advertisement. Think about each screen or each app. Oh, you can define the components of the products you can define maybe the total product or some components of the product, or you can define the context where you have to measure the emotions. For example, speeding in a car, okay, a leisure trip, that type of context you can create and measure. That's up to you in what way you have to measure. That depends on the your product design and what's the objectives of the project. Then measure it, then talk about the feelings. So what will be the result? You can see all these components of the models, are the variables are here. So group mean, from measurement you get these values because you already segmented it in and measure the values. This is the thing, that this is the result. There are a lot of process in between. That is, we have to take the values, then find out the group mean by using statistical method, or you have to find the central tendencies. Then you take inferential statistics or any other method. Then you can find this group mean. Then what is your acceptance level? So I put just an example, like, okay, should be above than 5, heroic to be above than 5, love should be above than 5, comedy and all others should be less than 5. That is your acceptance level. You have to fix it because nobody is interested in your product should be a tragedy or comedy or wonder, fury, disgust, or I explained all those things. So you can fix your acceptance level. Then you have to find the variations here. So think that there is -2 because you are whatever the other things are positive way, but actually they are not interested, they are not loving your product. That's a negative. So you have to look into that factor and find out the strategies to overcome it. That's why we need a continuous measurement. That's a continuous measurement in the sense the time series we are preparing. So whether these things are improving or not, that way we can measure it. The time series is the best method to track the changes. So you can change the strategy and measure it again, then find the difference. Okay, this is a very simple model I can. So how these 9 expressions can give a model for measuring the feelings of your consumer. Okay, I am done. I hope this is a very interesting topic and very controversial topics also, because anybody can challenge this model. So what creates fear? So anybody can challenge this model because it's very different ways people are expressing fear. That change is happening because of age, because of geography, or because of culture. A lot of things affects how the gestures and postures or how they are expressing. So you can challenge this model. But anyway, you have to create a model. You need a model to measure it. You have to measure it. That is very important. Whatever model you are using, there are a lot of models available. I'm more interested in this nine component model because that's established in decades and decades, or centuries and centuries. So it's established model. That's the reason I'm following that, and it's a practically used in theaters. So that is why I'm following that model. So no way connected to any research because I'm taking this model from a theater science behind the theater, then applying in this measuring method of consumer. So that's why I'm following this model that gives all the dimensions of consumer feelings. Regarding the equipments, you can use different equipments. I'm not saying that you have to use scientific methods. You can use observation or different methods you can use. But one important thing is the emotions to be measured within 5 seconds. That's very important. Okay. Think about it. When you drive a car, a pedestrian middle cross the road, even the driver can't express what the feeling he's having. Immediately he breaks it and stop the car, but only after he recollect what emotions had his mind, then only he can express his feelings. Oh, so fear. Oh, I'm frightened with that. So with I don't know what is going to happen. But I recovered from that immediately. I done something, but I don't know. I could not recollect what I have done, but my vehicle stopped. So that you can, I need not explain it more. So you have the emotions and feelings in your life every day. So the measuring is always a controversial thing because a lot of scientists worked on it. That's why there are a lot of scientific equipments are there and a lot of models are there. Still, the research is going on. Nobody can accept a established or universally accepted model for this. That's why we had to follow empirical models. Anyway, keep one model and do it continuously. Your time series or statistical methods will correct whatever errors you are creating in your model. So it will be corrected with the statistical principles. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. If you want to talk to me, scan this QR code and fix an appointment. At the same time, you are free to share my presentation to your colleagues and friends. And of course, we can talk about consumer experience in different levels. Awaiting your questions. Thank you so much. See you next week with the next component for customer experience index. In total, we are developing the model for customer experience index. One component is emotions and feelings that we completed. We already completed easiness, effectiveness. Then next week we come with another component. Wait for that. Thank you.